Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in Hosea, chapters 1 through 7, and we'll finish it tomorrow and reading chapters 8 through 14. But today's devotional, God tells Hosea, the prophet, to go marry a prostitute or he doesn't tell him which one to marry, but he says go marry a prostitute. So he marries this woman named Gomer. They have a child that God names, and it's interesting because I'll be honest, this caught me by surprise because I like to make lists, and I've made lists before of names of people that God chose their name when they were born, or God may have changed their name as they had a spiritual change. But this somehow missed my list. God said, or the angel said to name Jesus Emmanuel, for he will save his people from their sins. Matthew 1:21. He tells uh, John the Baptist's mother, Elizabeth, to name her son John. And so anyway, there's a list, but I just never, I don't know why I didn't put together that God told Hosea what to name his three children. And it's just interesting to put them in the list with Jesus and John the Baptist, but here they are. So, but God does this for a very specific reason. I think today, if God told somebody, "Hey, go out and marry a prostitute," they'd be like, "Well, that can't be from the Lord. It doesn't make sense." Yeah, well, not in sometimes not in our economy. But God does this. Gomer has a child with um, Hosea, and they name him Jezreel. And Jezreel, if you will remember, was the name of the city. Or we may not have gotten to that yet. That's in Kings, I think 2 Kings. Jezreel is the name of the city that Jezebel is from. Jezebel and Ahab were terrible king and queen and did a lot of really bad things. But she resides in the city of Jezreel. And he's named Jezreel, which is really interesting. Um, we absolutely have gone over that story before. Sorry. Um, but here, and this is a picture, what God's doing here is he's going to show him through this physical marriage the birth of one child that belongs to him. And then she has two kids while she's married to him that aren't his. And God, one of them, he says, name him this because you are not my people. And that's what the name means. And so it's interesting to see God play out this picture of um, God being the husband and Israel being the bride, and how it is God showing Israel that they are playing the harlot, that they are leaving God, their husband, and they're going and they're having all these other relationships with other gods, and it's spiritual idolatry, and it's spiritual adultery. But he uses this physical picture of a man and a woman, God and his bride, to show us what he's talking about here and to kind of bring home to Israel what they're actually doing in a way that maybe they can understand it better. Chapter 2, verses 3 through 7, God tells about, or Gomer thinks that she's gotten all these gifts and she's gotten all these things, and she's made money through her prostitution, and now, she claims all this is her own. And God says, do you not realize that I'm the one who provided you all these things? And you think you're the reason you have all these things? But anyway, 2:8, she has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, and who lavished her the silver and gold, which they turned and used for Baals. They used these items to worship other gods, things that our God, had given her. And then we see verses 8 through 3 that Gomer, like Israel, she is a picture of Israel, loves having all her possessions. She loves to party and drink wine and get drunk. She loves her independence. She loves being rebellious, and she's very materialistic. And this is a picture of what Israel, the nation of Israel, is doing in this moment. And it's just really neat to see how God lines these two up in a way that people can understand what he's feeling. After all this, um, it's a picture of grace. You would think God would say, I'm done with you. But here's what we read. I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in loving kindness and in compassion. God's grace continues to amaze me. And I'm glad, because without grace, I would have no hope. So I depend on grace as much as this nation of Israel does, as much as Ahab did when he humbled himself before God and God showed him grace. Um, anyway, going on, it's interesting because Israel hears this and they say, man, let's turn back to God. And they make this motion to turn back to God. And God says, don't do this lightly. Don't be like the dew of the grass that, man, it's moist in the morning, and then as the heat of the day comes, it's gone. He says, be sincere. If you're going to turn to me, you better be sincere. And you better make it last. So it's a good reminder for us. Anyway, that's Hosea 1 through 7. Tomorrow we're going to be in 8 through 14. So hope to see you back here tomorrow, read up and ready to go. Be safe.